Welcome back to Spotlight with Britt. So, in previous episodes, you've heard from Craig O'Neill, recently retired from THV11. You have heard from Melissa Kennan, who works with the National Park College in Hot Springs. Super cool. She has the opportunity to work in digital media and make those digital spaces accessible to people with disabilities. We've talked about AEDD a little bit with both of those podcasts, so stay tuned. I will have someone here to talk about AEDD more if you would like to get involved with the Arkansas Enterprise for the Developmentally Disabled. I'm also going to have someone from Exodus.life, one of our clients, that will be coming to talk more about the recovery community that they have here in Arkansas, specifically in Pulaski and Jefferson counties. We actually, if you weren't able to make it, I did extend an invite on the third episode of Spotlight with Britt. And we had that launch party I guess it was Thursday before last. So that was a really great turnout. A lot of people from different RCOs or recovery community organizations across the state, people that are on behalf of Exodus, whether they're employed with Exodus or they're on the board of Exodus.life. They've added a new service, and I'm going to touch on this in a minute. But they're now offering clinical services. So if you need to speak to someone in a therapist type setting, they offer that now as well. So in today's episode, it's just me. If you've noticed, I don't have anybody with me. I wanted to do this special episode to speak to my listeners and new listeners, hopefully, that will hear this episode and become avid followers. Um, Followers on YouTube, or they subscribe on YouTube. There's all the terms, y'all. I'm still getting used to this, being new to podcasting. But there's just a lot of different ways that you can connect and share these stories. I hope that you do that. I hope that you had a chance to listen to the interviews with Craig and Melissa. If you haven't, you can go back and listen to those. Right now we're on Spotify and YouTube, but I will be adding the other channels. So whatever podcast platform that you choose, you'll be able to find Spotlight with Britt. So in today's episode, what I want to do is just talk a little bit about choices and how you overcome obstacles and just how you can lead with grace and give yourself a little grace, just because, it's hard dealing with personal life and then business, like professional life, especially if you own your own business. I mean, that in itself is a whole nother animal. But like I said, in the second episode, we had Craig O'Neill. Craig actually came with Exodus.life and myself. We went to ACC here in Little Rock, and Craig spoke to a whole bunch of the students and was talking to them about choices. And so I want to talk about choices today and being intentional with your time and leading with grace. So if you have ever made a choice in your life, you know sometimes you encounter ones that are more difficult than others. And it's hard to really pick something sometime, like make that decision which way you're going to go, if you're going to go with option A or option B. What I have found, and I wanted to be a little transparent with y'all in this episode, so you can learn a little bit more about me if we've not had a one-to-one at a networking event, or we've never just sat down and really got to know each other a little better. So my career, I actually started at the Better Business Bureau, and that was my first year out of school. I decided to go into sales despite my initial just feelings of not really wanting to do that. And that was really because, I knew the misconception that people had about salespeople, or, maybe not always a misconception, but you have those preconceived notions. And so normally, people aren't very trusting of salespeople, and they tend to shut them down, ignore them, what have you. So I went through a lot of that early on in my career. Not so much at the Better Business Bureau, because that was more market research, if you will, and building out profiles for business owners, making sure that their information can be found easily on the website. But it was a form of sales. So every day I had the choice of who I got to go in and talk to, because we had to make cold calls. So I would have to plan my call list. We had to make a certain amount of calls every day. I had to decide, okay, do I reach out to this person? Maybe what I'm seeing isn't great information. Maybe we shouldn't offer them the ability to be an accredited business if they met the qualifications. There was just a lot of different things that went into play with that. But taking it a step further, whenever I went to work at the Yellow Pages. So that was a huge choice for me, because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, who really uses the Yellow Pages anymore? But I had a friend, she worked at the Yellow Pages, and she kind of spun it as, well, who really uses the Better Business Bureau anymore? Side note, believe it or not, a lot of people still do. The Yellow Pages, not so much. I think they're the size of my pinky nail now. So that's kind of sad. But they offer digital stuff, which 4 of my 6 years there, I was in sales. And a year and a half, I was a digital sales manager for the Yellow Pages. And that was a choice that I had to make. I thought about being a manager of a sales team, but I wasn't really sure if that was an extra level of stress that I wanted to take on in my professional life. However, with the support and encouragement of my coworkers at the time, that was a choice that I decided, yes, I was going to proceed with that. So I had the experience in management. I will tell you, hindsight, yes, it gave me a lot of perspective on how it works in business, managing people, managing, the choices that you have to make. Number one, I have people that are working for me and that have to hit sales objectives. So if I have two sales reps that needed my assistance out on a call, I had to make the choice of whether or not I wanted to go out with rep A or rep B. Choices. Again, you are presented every day with a plethora of choices, from what you want to have to eat for lunch, what meeting you want to attend. If you want to take time after work to go and do something related to your professional life, or if you want to take that work-life balance and tip those scales to where you take time for yourself. As you all probably know, a lot of time spent at American Business Engine for me is networking. So we're members of the North Little Rock Chamber of Commerce. I am the chair of one of the two leads groups, Power Hour, that meets the second and fourth Wednesday of every month over at the North Little Rock Chamber. I'm also the chair of the Vanguard Committee. So we go out to all the ribbon cuttings when new businesses join the chamber, and we're there to support them. That's a choice that I made. It takes a lot of time, but I really value relationships with people. And so that was a reason that I decided, when people nominated me to be the chair, I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. It takes time, but I make that choice to take those opportunities, put them on my calendar. So I'm intentional, right? Intentional with my time, and go out, meet those people that have started these businesses, that have opened new locations, that have expanded their territories and are now in Central Arkansas, what have you. There's a plethora of ways that we get connected with these individuals. But going out and getting to know them, some people aren't extroverted like me. Some people don't find it easy to go and talk to other people. And I think that's probably just compounded over time, my comfortability with that, because you go out and you meet all these people, and you might not be okay with talking to someone at first, but you're kind of forced into it. And so I encourage people to be intentional with their time, but reflect on what is important to them. So building those relationships with these different businesses and business owners and employees, that might not be something that's important to you. But being intentional with your time to achieve your goals, to further the purpose that you have set out for yourself, or more that God has set for you, if you believe in God. So just really being in prayer about that kind of stuff helped me through these different times. And as I've gone on in my over 10 years of experience in sales and advertising and marketing, I've really come to figure out what my purpose is. And that being intentional with your time is very important, because there's so many things that could take you off track, that could divert your attention, that could suck you down that rabbit hole that honestly happens on a regular basis for me, because we manage social media accounts for some of our clients. And so you have notifications that come in, and then you want to go and look and see, oh, well, what else is happening on this feed? Or let's comment to these people. I mean, choices abound daily, hourly. And if you're not intentional with your time, you can definitely get sidetracked. So that's one of the things I want to encourage for this episode, is to be intentional with your time and plan. So they have this old adage, failing to plan is planning to fail. So the more and more that I go on in my journey in being self-employed, as an entrepreneur, I can definitely tell you that making assumptions, more often than not, is going to lead to a poor outcome for you. I could tell you countless stories from my past that, it doesn't behoove you to assume. You always need to cross those T's, dot those I's, and just make sure that what you envision is actually what's going to happen, because you've taken the time to plan and make sure that everything is in order just the way it needs to be, so you don't encounter a mishap or disappointment for yourself because that dream or that goal didn't come true. So, number one, be intentional, right? Plan, don't fail because you fail to plan. So, number two, fail forward. We are all going to make choices at some point in our life where, again, our desire, what we want that outcome to be, may not necessarily come to fruition. And that's okay, because failing forward, you can reassess. Hindsight's always 2020, but you can reassess where you are and really just propel yourself to the next level, because you've taken note, you've gone through and you've inventoried what worked, what didn't work, and you know for the next time, okay, I don't need to do this because I remember what happened last time. Unfortunately, some of us get in a rut, and once you fail at something, whether that, is, if you're in recovery, if you have a relapse, more often than not, especially early in the journey, it happens. But you have to pick yourself up and keep moving, because you see that long-term recovery for yourself, and that's your goal. You want to be happy. Sometimes, say you're looking for a new job. This is a prime example. We'll step forward to my next career. So, left the Yellow Pages. I decided that, I was going to check out the television industry. Had that same friend that encouraged me to apply at the Yellow Pages. She referred me to Channel 7 and Channel 11. So KATV and KTHV were both hiring. This was mid-2018. And I was kind of like, okay, who really watches television? So I'm getting in my head, and I'm like, I don't want to do this job anymore. They had restructured territories when I was at the Yellow Pages, and so they absorbed my sales team into another region. So they told me, hey, we're going to start doing this CRM project. And whenever, you're in a situation where a company is being bought out and, downsizing, restructuring, what have you, sometimes you're put in a situation where you don't necessarily like either of the choices that you're given, which I didn't, obviously, I didn't like to hear the fact that, hey, you're not going to be a sales manager anymore. No fault of your own, but we're absorbing your territory into another region, and either you can sell this software for us, or thanks for your 5.5 years of service to the company. So failing forward, at first, yes, I beat myself up because I didn't know what I was going to do. But failing forward, I realized, let me try something new. I'd already tried the digital sales manager role, and that was great. Had great success with the team. And so I decided to try the CRM sales, CRM, customer relationship management, in case you're wondering what that acronym stands for. So I did that for like 6 months. And again, that same friend that referred me to the Yellow Pages, she was moving out of the market, going back to Texas where she was from. And she, again, gave me a choice. She's like, hey, I'm going to work for a TV station, and I think that 2 TV stations here locally are hiring. Checked it out, sure enough. Again, so KATV and KTHV, Channel 7 and Channel 11, were both hiring for a sales rep. Who watches television anymore? Like, who watches live TV, doesn't record stuff, hasn't cut the cord, and just streams everything themselves whenever, on demand when they're ready to watch it? But again, I had that choice. If I had decided that I wasn't ready, I didn't want to continue in selling the software, then I either could explore these opportunities or I could look elsewhere. And at that time, I didn't really know if I wanted to stay in sales, but I did explore those options. I interviewed with Channel 7, and their position was a new business rep. So I was going to have no book of business. It was strictly cold calling, cultivating relationships, and selling to new clients. I'm going to tell you, not having ever done anything in television, that scared me to death. And when interviewed at Channel 11, I was intrigued because they started talking about, again, the book of business. I would have a book of business. I wouldn't have as much of a profile as what other reps had, but it would give me the opportunity to learn from current customers, also at the same time cultivating new relationships with new clients. The more and more that I debated what I wanted that next step to be, I had to incorporate God, because I really felt like I was at a point where this was going to be a pivotal next step for me. I was in my late 20s, I guess, and it honestly, I'm so glad that I made that choice. That I chose, if you don't know already, I chose to go to Channel 11. So I remember I prayed so hard, and I was like, God, Channel 7 is just an amazing station. They're number one in the market, but I just don't know if I can see myself doing strictly new business, right? Especially not knowing anything about the product. I went to my last interview at THV 11, and I pulled in. So there's a side parking lot along the building over there at off of 7th Street. And THV 11, one of their slogans is "This is home." And as I pulled in that parking spot, they had this vinyl sign, and it said, "THV 11, this is home." And I didn't know, walking into that office for that last interview, if I was going to be given the opportunity to work for Channel 11. But when I saw that sign, I had this just overwhelming sense of peace within me, that I knew if they said, "We'd like to offer you this opportunity," that was going to be the way that I went. That was going to be my choice. So again, choices. If you're in between a rock and a hard place, you don't know what to do, I would suggest that you get opinions from your different people that you know that are in your social circles. Speak to your family. Don't always take everything that they say to heart, okay? Because obviously your family wants what's best for you. And yes, this was a new journey for me, and nobody really knew anything about it. So I got mixed reactions. But I did. I took time. I examined all of the different avenues that I could go, and I decided to proceed down that road and see what that journey entailed for me. I have told a lot of you that I chose when, in conversation, you've probably heard me say, yeah, when I left THV 11. This is really hard for me to, it's not really hard for me to say, but I haven't been like super transparent with everyone. And I want to do that now. I just want to be vulnerable. I want to put it out there that I had the option to resign from THV 11. I could have done that. I was in a place that my grandmother had passed prior to that situation. My dog had gotten sick. COVID was happening. Oh my gosh, y'all. Like, that was, let me tell you what, being an extrovert like myself and being in sales and working for a television station, okay, you're out seeing people. In sales, period, they say if you are in the office, you're not selling. And that's true. You have to be out talking to people. Um, but there were just a lot of rough bumps throughout that last couple years that I was with the station. And I got put on a performance improvement plan, or PIP, another acronym for you. That performance improvement plan actually did not pan out well for me. You know, your bosses always want to be optimistic and say, well, you know, there have been a lot of people that were on these performance improvement plans in the past and everything's been great and it's fine. Well, for me, it wasn't fine. You know, I tried my hardest to attain the goals that were set forth for me, the sales goals, the meetings, you know, the making the funnel, you know, what it needed to be to make sure that I was hitting those goals. But among all those obstacles, it didn't happen. And so I was let go from THV 11 in January of 2022. Like I said, I tell people just to kind of like off the surface and make me feel like not have to go into this story. Yeah, when I left THV, you know, yada yada, but I was let go, y'all. And I thought, oh, well, you know, I'm fired. Like, I'll get unemployment. It'll be fine. I'll have a way to support myself and bounce back and figure out what the next step is going to be. And another choice. I did not get my unemployment from the state. So I thought that I was going to get, you know, something to help support me and pay my bills through this next hurdle and making that decision where the journey would take me next. And it didn't happen. And I filed the appeal and I didn't get it. And so, you know, I could have been upset and held a grudge and all this and just festered that frustration, and you know, it could have just really got me down. But I knew that with my experience there was something else out there for me. So things happen how they're supposed to happen. There are no coincidences. I 150% believe that. And at that time, you know, I really didn't think, after that, I really didn't think I wanted to be in sales again. And when I tell you I prayed before I went to THV, y'all, I prayed hard whenever I took this next step. Like I said, I didn't know if I wanted to be in sales anymore. I didn't know what journey lied ahead for me. I had an opportunity. A client of mine from THV knew of a local ad agency that was looking for a project manager. And I interviewed. I met one of the partners, and it was a great conversation. He told me, hey, I want you to come in and meet with the other partner that we have, just kind of talk through some things. And I felt good about it. You know, I had worked with advertising agencies when I was at THV 11, and working with them and working for them were two totally different animals. I had considered starting my own advertising agency. That was super scary to me, but it was a thought. And when I had this opportunity presented to me, I thought, well, maybe this is where I need to go. Maybe I need to look at this opportunity and see, okay, if I can work for an ad agency, then maybe that will help me decide if this is really the path that I wanted to take. I'm sure it wouldn't have been a long-term thing with that agency. So maybe, someday I wanted to start my own. And I went and met with the other owner. It was a great meeting. I thought it was going to last maybe 15 minutes, and it ended up lasting about an hour and a half. Felt awesome about it. I just knew, from talking to them, talking to the owners, meeting a couple people on the team, like I was really excited if they were to give me the opportunity to be a project manager. I would get to work in the ad agency scene, and I would get, a better feel for what it's all about and see if that was something I still wanted to do long term. I told them that I had a trip planned. So I was going to Mexico, and I said, okay, I've got this trip planned, and when I get back, I'll be back after the first week of May. Okay, great. They were excited. Let us know when you get back. We'll get the ball rolling on the paperwork. And so I was good. I felt good about it. And after that, got back from the vacation, reached out, crickets. There was no follow-up. I reached out to multiple people. I didn't hear anything back. I didn't get a reply, an email, a phone call, nothing. And so if you know my situation now, I was offered the opportunity to partner with Ty King in American Business Engine. And Ty and I had a meeting one day, and I said, this is just really crazy. I mean, I prayed hard for like 6 months because he'd said, this is what I see. This is what I see for the company. And, I'd really like to have you on board to move this dream forward. And, it was, again, doing things that I wasn't familiar with. And I was not familiar with in the slightest. Okay. So I'd never done any kind of digital marketing, like actually implemented and managed it. All my experience with digital marketing was selling. Okay, so I had a team. I would sell the product. I would come back to the office, submit the order, and then the team would manage it going forward. So at this point, when that choice had been taken out from under my feet, that's a whole nother story, but basically they were in a pinch, and the ad agency had to take part of the salary they were going to offer me to give to a new employee they had to hire, on the spot. And so that really, it was like, okay, maybe this is my picture, my clear picture. Like that was not the choice that I needed to make, even though in the end I didn't really get to make that choice. But I did get to make a super amazing choice for myself, and I pursued the partnership with Ty. So now we are going on 2 years of partnering in American Business Engine. So when I tell you that I prayed harder than I've ever prayed in my life. And as a Christian, I feel bad saying that at the moment, but it's legit. Like I prayed and I prayed because I needed help deciding if this is something that I really felt confident enough to step out and do, because, there's going to be another learning curve. We do website design. I'd never built a website in my life, much less, even sold one, really. Like in the very beginning at the Yellow Pages, we could sell websites, but they weren't, But anyway, so again, choices. Failing forward, the THV opportunity went to the wayside. The project manager opportunity went to the wayside. And again, during all this time, I was still overcoming grief from my Mimi passing away and dealing with COVID and just navigating that new normal. Like I said, I had lost my dog that I'd had for like 14 and a half years. Um, and I felt like there was really no better time to try this new thing than when I did. And so fast forward, a year and a half, almost 2 years, and we have had 2 years of our podcast festival, our cast. So we've grown that from one day in 2022 to a whole week last year. And that was just in Central Arkansas. We did 2 other days in Northwest Arkansas. And now, from all of these different opportunities to learn and to be hands-on, with American Business Engine we've created several podcasts that have been launched in the last 6 months or so. Here we are. So I've got my podcast now, and I've learned about the website design and management, learning things all the time about social media marketing for clients. And the networking, though, has really been a big piece to me because I've found people that I have made the choice to get to know better. And some, it wasn't really a great fit for us. But other people I have made consistent contact with and built those relationships. And I am beyond grateful for all of those opportunities, and having people that will stand behind you when you're in a tough spot. Another thing that relates to that, having people stand behind you. So I have a therapist. I've been seeing her. She helped me work through, some of the grief with the loss of Mimi, with the loss of my dog, with setting boundaries with family and learning how to navigate, tough waters when it comes to family and friends and business dealings. And so I will encourage you, if you're hearing this podcast and you're going through a tough time and it feels like the waves just keep crashing over you, kind of like some of the stories that, a little bit of the story that we heard from Melissa Kennan in the last episode. Whenever you are faced with an overwhelming amount of adversity, you have to make up your mind that you have dreams that you want to attain. You have goals that you want to achieve. And being resilient and not breaking under that pressure. Shout out to Chris Hansen, Rainbow of Resilience. There's a lot of things, y'all, that are going to hit you in life. And I know that my story is just one of so many out there. There's always someone that's going through something more difficult than what you are any day of your life. Speaking of our podcast, our cast last year, our podcast festival, got a friend that he's going through some struggles right now. And, you just never know when your life could make a 180, and just being grateful every day, leading with grace with yourself, because you're the only person that you can really manage. We all, I think, have that want to help people and change people, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that we have to worry about. Yes, okay, if you're married, then you have a spouse, you've probably got kids, or even if you don't, you've got family. But at the end of the day, the only actions that you can take responsibility for are your own. So I'm going to be wrapping this podcast up. But I just wanted to encourage you guys, if you don't have a therapist, don't shoot that down. Don't shoot that idea down and throw it out the window. I would encourage you to explore that if that option presents itself to you, or if somebody, else suggests it to you. I would definitely just think about it. Maybe it's not a good fit for you. Maybe you don't, your insurance or you're unable, but consider talking to somebody. Even if it's me, look, I'm an unbiased third party. Okay. I went to school, didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I liked talking to people and that I had a lot of friends that came to me for advice and just a shoulder to cry on or somebody to vent to. And so if I can ever help you in that way, you know, don't hesitate to reach out. And if I can't help you, then I'm sure in my vast network of connections that I have someone that can help you in whatever situation you encounter. I do want to, again, speak to God. I know said I was going to weave my faith in these podcasts a little bit. And I came across something the other day that I really, I felt like I needed to add in closing with today's podcast. So it's entitled The Answer, and it says, I see you exactly where you are through the trials and struggles that create turmoil in your soul. I have not forgotten you. I am with you. I'm always walking with you, by your side, a ready help in times of trouble. I want you to be aware of my presence and my great love for you. And then I want your heart to understand what your mind knows. It is faith that will dispel the gripping fear that keeps you from the peace that comes through trusting in my promises. You do not need to be afraid when you walk through the valleys of life. They are part of the journey, not the destination. I am for you and with you in the midst of all your uncertainty and despair. I ask you to do one thing only. Look to me. I am the answer to every situation. I am your rock, your strong tower, and the author of your salvation. I am your only true hope. Therefore, find your hope in me. All else will fail, but I never will. As you're facing the trying situations in your life, know that I am able to do all things. Everything is possible with me. Your hope should not rest in anything but the cross. At the cross, there is redemption and resurrection. The sacrifice of Jesus has removed all sin, sickness, and sorrow. Jesus bore it all for you so that you would have a life of victory and hope. The cross is for you right now in the situation you are in so that you might find my love and power in your life. For every situation you face in life, no matter how impossible things might seem, I am your answer. And I am, if you're a Christian, refers to God. And the verse that's tied to this write-up is from Mark chapter 10, verse 27. This is from the New Living Translation. Everything is possible with God. So, in closing for the podcast, I want to remind you that, again, with all things God with God, all things are possible. And if you're ever in a rut in your life, you're not alone in any moment. There is always the Holy Spirit present within you. And I encourage you to run into that storm. Don't run away from it, because the quicker that you run through it, the faster you're going to come through it. And even though you hit some bumps along the way, don't let that overcome you. Keep going, pick up the pieces, fail forward, make those choices, hopefully that you will have prayed about. In all things, pray without ceasing, and be intentional. Just be intentional with your time. And I hope that this time has helped you come through a place that if this isn't the time that you needed to hear it, you can reflect on it again in the future. And just have a great day, y'all. Whatever time it is that you're hearing this podcast, I hope that your day is blessed for you. Don't forget, we have a new episode of Spotlight with Britt every second and fourth Wednesday. And if you have not subscribed, followed, reviewed the podcast, shared it with someone, please do that. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you next time.